So it's July, and we're ready for our first annual Ethel Ray Adams Stella Cleo Simmons Weenie Roast. Looking to see all of you here. Come out, have a great time. We have karaoke, food, movies. We got it all. So,
Family History Project magazine starts now. Now.
Cynthia Hambright, born 20th of April 1813 to James Hambright and Cynthia Wells. She migrated to Missouri sometime around 1828, 2 years before the birth of the state. She married Thomas Jefferson Hudspeth on the 31st of March in 1829 in Jackson County, Missouri, at the age of 16. In 1834 she had her first child, Henrietta, followed by Missouri in 1837, Mary in 1839. Her first son was William. He was born in 1843, followed by Sarah in 1846, and Thomas in 1849. Husband, Thomas Jefferson, left his wife and children behind in 1849 to join in the gold rush, leading a group of folks to Coloma, El Dorado County, California. In a letter to Cynthia, he boasted of clearing over $700 by helping other folk make it to the Sutter's Mill on the South Fork of the American River in Coloma. Thomas fell ill and died soon after arriving. He is presumed to be buried near the mill in El Dorado County. Cynthia was left to raise 6 children alone. Being from the South, both Cynthia and Thomas were Southern sympathizers during the Civil War, and Cynthia did have at least 2 slaves to help with the farm and the children. The Hudspeth family had grown quite wealthy, owning many hundreds of acres of land in Jackson County and elsewhere. But everything changed in 1863. Fort Osage Township, now Sibley, Missouri, was a hotbed of activity for Confederate sympathizers. Some of Cynthia's relatives and friends took part in the William Quantrell raid of Lawrence, Kansas, killing some 177 men and boys. By William's own command to kill any boy old enough to hold a gun. Many fathers and sons were murdered in front of wives and mothers. This raid set off a firestorm in Missouri and elsewhere, having been the bloodiest civilian battle of the war. Once the Quantrell people returned to Missouri, Union General Thomas Ewing Jr. issued General Orders No. 11, which required all persons in a 4-county region to either prove their loyalty to the Union or remove themselves from the county within 15 days. The affected counties were Jackson, Bates, Cass, and the northern parts of Vernon counties in Missouri. Cynthia was commanded to appear before the court to prove her loyalty. While away on this journey to independence, her house was set upon and burned to the ground by Union forces. The story, as reported by her slave Sam Jackson, was that once Cynthia returned and found her home still smoldering, she told Sam to grab a long-handled rake and dig through the coals in order to salvage anything that may be left. Sam did as told and found at the bottom of the coals a barrel of beans that contained the family Bible. The cover was scorched, but the Bible and all the valuable family information that it contained was intact. Sam was reported to have said that he saw a miracle right in front of his eyes that day. Cynthia both supported the Confederate cause and sheltered many Confederate sympathizers. This resulted in her house being burnt to the ground not once, but twice. The last time the house was burned, they burned the corn crib and the barn. Both were full of food and livestock at the time. Cynthia lived another 18 years after the end of the Civil War. She's buried in Sibley, Missouri, in the shadow of Fort Osage in Sibley, Missouri.
Today we're in the shadow of Fort Osage here in Sibley, Missouri, and we're here to clean Cynthia Hambright Hudspeth's tombstone. And she was married to Thomas Jefferson Hudspeth, and they were cousins on the Clack family, which goes the girl Hockety Clack, and goes back a long ways on the Clack family, who immigrated here in the 1670s from England to Virginia, and then went everywhere in the United States. But here we're here to clean her tombstone. And Cynthia, during the war here, the Civil War here in Jackson County, she was vacated by Order Number 11. They burned her house to the ground. She prepared for this though, and she buried some of her valuables and her Bible. She hid in a pile of beans, but they burned her house down nonetheless. And she come back and recovered the items. And she's buried here at Fort Osage Cemetery here in Sibley. and we're going to clean her tombstone and honor her today. And we'll give some more history about Cynthia and her husband and all the stuff she went through during the Civil War and after. She lived a very hard life, and she was a very strong woman. So we're going to honor her, and we'll get the party started.
So we're here with Miss Hudspeth. We're going to take care of her today. Things you want to keep with you and keep in mind of is, especially if you're in a cemetery out in the country, snakes. Keep an eye on snakes because they're here. You also need a couple things: insect repellent, and since we'll be working with D2 again today, we want to have some masks. We don't want to breathe in D2. We're going to start the process today by dry brushing the stone and scraping with plastic scrapers to get as much of the lichen off as possible. We'll then coat the stone with D2, do some scrubbing, water it down, coat it again, scrub some more. Then we'll leave a final spray on the stone, and I'll come back and check in a couple weeks, see how she's doing. It'll be drastic. Thanks. Always remember, mask. You don't want to breathe any of this stuff in. Quite a bit of the lichen dirt off of it. Next step is to coat it with D2 and let it sit for a little bit. So we've coated the stone, we've let it dry. You can see it's changed colors. It's changed a couple of different colors in the process, but it's completely dry now. So we'll start with clean water, soft bristle brush, and scrub it down a little bit. And we'll apply another coat of D2 and let her sit again. Okay, so this is after applying the second coat of D2. You can see the colors are changing to a really funky mustard green. In a few minutes it'll change to kind of a rusty kind of a color. And after that changes color, another 5 or 10 minutes and you'll be ready to wash it down. It's already a major improvement. And we just ran out of D2, so we won't be able to do a third treatment, but this one will help it a lot. This next treatment will help it a lot. And we'll come back and check on Miss Hudspeth in the future. As you can see, with just 2 treatments of D2 and a little bit of elbow grease, we went from completely unreadable to amazing already. This will continue to lighten over the weeks and months, a couple of good rains, and it will look almost like new. So we'll come back and check on Miss Cynthia Hudspeth in the future. But for today, it's been an honor to work with the Cynthia Stone, and we'll leave her a little something to let her know we were here. We'll be back, and she'll never be forgotten. Thanks for joining us.